The Georgia Bulldogs 31 at the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in Atlanta, Georgia 23. 31-23, Georgia wins this one. Georgia is a very, very, very talented team. And that is the only way they get out of this game with a win. This was all talent, in my opinion. And the talent showed through at the end of the game, thank God, for the Georgia Bulldogs as they finished their third undefeated regular season in a row. And their third undefeated SEC season in a row, which has never been done before. What did you think about the Georgia Bulldogs? Different way to victory for this offense this week as Georgia got behind that offensive line and Kendall Milton and decided to run the football. What did you think?
Yeah, they definitely did that. Kendall Milton had a great game. I think early on, Georgia Tech starts the game with the ball, and they go 3 and out and punt the ball, and then it's Georgia's turn, and Georgia says, "Wait a second, you didn't score on your opening possession. Here, take the ball back and go score a touchdown, and then we can play." Right? So that's what happened. Dejon Edwards fumbles on the very first play, giving Georgia Tech the ball on the 37-yard line, and they go down in 4 plays and score. 2 minutes into this ball game, and Georgia's down 7-0, and in a familiar territory, right? That's kind of what they're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Other teams do is get ahead early and then play from behind. So it's an interesting identity for this Georgia team, but they've done it especially as of late in the back half of this season, and they've done it well. They're pretty resilient in that sense. But and then Georgia went on to score a touchdown. Georgia Tech answers with a field goal, touchdown for Georgia, field goal Tech, another touchdown for Georgia, and then Tech missed a field goal, and then heading into halftime. So I thought that Georgia answered pretty well, right? They have the fumble on that first drive, and they say, okay, we got to dust that off, and they were resilient. That they go and answer with 3 touchdowns right after that. Defense is. It seemed like Buster Faulkner had a great game plan. Is really what happened.
Yeah.
That offense reminded me of last year's Georgia offense. Just the motions. It looked like he took that same offense and just took it to Georgia Tech and ran that system, and he's doing it at a high level. I was really impressed. Though I did not think that this game would be as close as it was. I thought that Tech would score about 23 points. I just thought Georgia could get to 42. That's kind of how I saw the game unfolding in a way. But that's not how it happened. I think that Georgia's defense got exposed in some areas, and there were definitely some holes, and Haynes King was able to find them. And I was really impressed with him in a lot of ways as well. Haynes King finished 11 of 20, 158 yards and almost 8 yards, per attempt. And but it seemed like he was pretty gritty, out there throwing the football around. He also had 10 carries for 24 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So kind of doing it in both ways. And then Carson Beck on the other side had probably his worst game from a statistical standpoint. His first game where he was under 250 yards passing, as he finished with just 175 yards. He had 1 touchdown, did have 1 interception. It was really almost 2 interceptions, but one of them did hit the turf that they called back. So statistically, yeah, he played bad, but really like watching it live, I thought he was pretty good. I don't know how you felt about it. I mean, there were a couple of passes that were off. The 1 interception was a deflection, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, every interception that he's had this year has been from a deflection. But I thought it was interesting to see Carson Beck sort of struggle and to see the offense kind of step up around him a little bit in some ways, in this run game in particular. But what did you think of this Georgia offense?
Well, I thought Carson Beck played fine. 20 attempts is not a lot for this Georgia
Mhm.
offense, and I think that Georgia figured out fairly early in this ball game that moving up and down the field very quickly wasn't going to benefit them quite as much as it maybe would in weeks past. In the fact that Georgia Tech had a great game plan for running the football, they really did. That, like you said, it was very confusing. It was confusing to watch. The cameraman could hardly keep up. Um, it was kind of similar almost to the olden days Georgia Tech of Paul Johnson with the triple option. I mean, it was
Mhm.
very, very tough to defend. But as far as you asking about the Georgia offense, I think that's what this Georgia offense is going to look like. Now, the turnovers obviously cost them some points in this game because if they don't turn it over, they're scoring. Georgia, every time they had the ball and they didn't turn the ball over, they scored just about. So Georgia Tech wasn't going to stop anybody. But in the passing game, particularly, it was very clear that Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers were missing. You just miss those big play abilities from those guys. We saw Arian Smith come up with and look, Georgia's trying to get Arian Smith going. I can tell you right now, I can see it. They need this speedster for the postseason, and that's when he's been best in his career is the postseason. So I was very impressed with the run game. I thought that Georgia would have an edge running the football in this game, and they surely did. Kendall Milton has the best game he's ever had, averaged damn near 10 yards a carry. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought Bobo did a good job transitioning over from what our normal offense is to hey, we'll beat you this way and we'll run some time off the clock because Georgia Tech actually won the time of possession clock. And if it would have gotten more out of hand than that, I'm not sure that Georgia Tech isn't right in here for the win on this thing, especially if Georgia keeps tossing it around. And that's one of the downfalls of having a passing offense is the fact that things can go south on you like that
Yeah.
one play. And I think we saw that a little bit, and then we saw some untimely fumbles, obviously from Georgia, which was kind of an issue that we had early in the season with Georgia as well. The turning the ball over when Georgia hasn't produced offensively, it's almost all you can almost always point the finger at the turnover margin and turning the ball over on offense. So um, I thought it was a very much a situation where Georgia's just trying to get out of there with the dub, man, and I think that their offensive game plan originally and pre-game plan was probably just a little bit off, and I think they quickly made the adjustments, and Mike Bobo transitioned over to some old Georgia football style. That box score, obviously minus the turnovers, as I said, looked like a 2017 Georgia team.
Yeah.
With the lower passing yards, running the ball a lot, and it was very successful in this game. And kudos to the coaches for getting that done. But this was a situation where Georgia was at a huge advantage talent wise, and I think that was really the difference in this game. As Georgia Tech, you heard Kirby say it after the game, hats off to those guys. They played a hell of a game, and Georgia Tech did play a hell of a game. And Brent Key has got this team with a whole new attitude and a whole new outlook on football. And I hope that Georgia Tech will get behind this guy and will support him because Georgia Tech needs a guy like Brent Key. Brent Key is to Georgia Tech what Kirby Smart is to Georgia in the fact that they both played there. They know everything about these football programs. They love these football programs, and I think that that's a big deal with coaches these days. We're about to see the coaching carousel, so you'll see how faithful each coach is to their team over the next few weeks. Somebody's leaving a job that you didn't expect, and I think Brent Key is in a situation where he is at home at Georgia Tech, and I'm happy for Georgia Tech and hoping that they'll be able to build off of, what is a loss, but I think that there's something that they can build off of playing a close game with the Georgia Bulldogs, who I think in pretty much everybody's rankings is the number one team in the nation. Defensively, yeah, they exposed some moving parts on this defense, and um, secondary looked good, but Georgia Tech wasn't interested in throwing the ball around a whole lot. They wanted to run the football and kind of took a page out of Auburn's book. I thought Georgia Tech and Auburn played a very very similar game this weekend as far as offensively. The way they kind of tricked you on the runs and misdirections and That's a good strategy for a team that's at a talent disadvantage. And I thought Georgia Tech executed very well. So congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs, third consecutive undefeated season. I never thought I would utter those words, Mason.
Yeah, I know.
Never thought I would utter those words. Georgia has got something to celebrate, but you better get it over with quick because December 2nd is on the way. Georgia, Bama, it's the showdown that we've all really seen over the well, I guess we didn't see it last year, but we've seen it brewing in the making. Another one of these big rematches between Georgia and Alabama, and Kirby Smart will look to protect his perfect season in Atlanta December 2nd.